Once again, we're going back to my experiences when deployed overseas, or more accurately, my gaming library in that little modular room. This time, the game I'm focusing on is called Freedom Fighters. It was created by IO Interactive, otherwise known as the guys behind the Hitman games. Well, that and Kane and Lynch, but we won't go there. Freedom Fighters is a game that I had fond memories of when I played it back in '03. I remember it being somewhat challenging, yet still fun. And yes, that is a perfect way to sum up my thoughts of it even now. In Freedom Fighters, you play as a plumber named Chris Stone. Him and his brother Troy are just traveling to a celebrity's house to clear a clog when a bunch of soldiers from, well, to avoid hitting any kind of trigger words that YouTube may not like due to the current situations going on in the world today, let's just say it's a large Asian country that's flag contains a sickle and a tool that strikes nails. This army thinks that Chris and Troy are terrorists that are combating their takeover of the US and are able to capture Troy. Chris manages to escape due to him hiding, and the game begins with him meeting up with some freedom fighters that are attempting to fight back the invading forces. There's a bit more story here that explains why this country I'm not mentioning, although we all know who it is attempting to control the US, but I won't bother going into that here, because it's not too deep and it's not touched upon much afterwards. Instead, the story focuses on Chris getting back his brother and then becoming a rebel leader, leading the insurgents against the foreign troops. Due to him becoming a leader, the game has an interesting take on the standard third-person combat that the game contains. Chris does get the standard options of crouching, shooting, jumping, and meleeing. However, in addition to this comes the charisma meter, seen as the yellow gauge that's underneath the green health bar. As you complete objectives and save both downed rebels and hurt civilians, Chris will gain charisma, in the same way a typical RPG hero gains experience points. Once the yellow bar is filled up, Chris gains a charisma point, which dictates how many rebels can be recruited by Chris. By maintaining a squad of impromptu soldiers, Chris's chances of success, as well as his survival rates, will increase. In addition to this, his squad can be ordered around a bit. It's not too in-depth, but it is useful in many situations. Maybe you'll want to duck behind cover with a sniper rifle while you direct your pals to focus their fire on a mounted turret. Maybe you want to lay down suppressive fire while you flank the enemy. Or maybe you just want to do what I normally did and have them follow you and act as just extra firepower as you take point. There are plenty of options available and it's pretty neat to see in action. Best of all, your rebel fighters are actually competent at what they do. Yes, they will rush into the fray with reckless abandon at times, but most of the times, they will act safe and still be able to take down targets. And this is good because Chris isn't the most accurate soldier. In fact, his accuracy is, quite frankly, absolute crap. You might think this is a bit crazy, but think about it. He's just a plumber and may not be a gun nut. So to have him not be able to take accurate shots is actually a pretty refreshing take on the genre. It actually helps encourage you to lean on your squad mates. Granted, towards the end of the game, he does get a bit more accurate, but he's still never to the level of, say, Master Chief, Doom Guy, or dumb random codename guy from any Call of Duty. Seriously, who the hell names themselves Soap? It's stupid. Although the game takes place in chapters, most of them contain multiple areas of the city. Each of these areas can be tackled in any order that you wish. However, there are times where you might have to visit one zone and complete an objective there before backtracking to another part of the city. For example, at the beginning of the game, you'll want to visit the police station to pick up some C4. You then take that C4 to the post office to blow up a gas station that a nest of snipers is calling home. You can then safely go back to the police station to raise the American flag, which is this game's indication that a level is cleared. Not all secondary objectives need to be completed in order to finish the game, but keep in mind that these side missions do give a good amount of charisma, so completing them all is highly recommended. With all of that said, the game is definitely not a standard run and gun. If you behave like it is, you are going to be gunned down quickly. You'll probably want to use cover, especially in early parts of the game, as Chris may only have 1 or 2 guys available to recruit. You can resurrect them if they fall, but it does use up a valuable health pack, of which you can carry only 8 of them, and at times these can be fairly rare. If you are struggling in certain areas, you might want to take a different approach, such as maybe finding an alleyway with an open building, climbing to the top, taking out the sniper there, and using his rifle to take a quick few pot shots at the opposition. There are a decent selection of weapons available, but personally, I only stuck to about 2. The pistol and the AK were my normal method of attack, as the ammo for these were plentiful. The shotgun isn't terrible, but it does have a short range, and I normally didn't want to get that close to my enemies. The sniper rifle is great, but ammo is very limited. There is an SMG, but it's so inaccurate and weak that I felt like I wasted more rounds than I hit. The MG is amazing, but again, ammo is rare. I didn't care for the Magnum, and the rocket launcher is only required in a small handful of areas. You might think differently on these weapons depending on your playstyle, but if you are unsure on how you want to attack the game, I feel you can't go wrong with the AK. One thing of note is that reloading is done automatically. It's honestly a bit odd at first, and I never really got used to it. If you fire off a few rounds and then don't shoot at all, Chris will automatically reload. This cannot be interrupted, and it could be the source of a few extra points of damage. I'm not sure why the game was designed this way, but it was, and it's a thing. Let's say that you are really struggling and need to find a checkpoint so you don't have to start the stage over again. Well, that's what the sewers are for. Your rebel base is located underground in the sewer system. By finding a manhole, you have multiple options. You can opt to travel back to the base, which is never required. You can travel between areas in that chapter, or you can quick save. Little tip, quick save often. You'll lose this quick save if you shut the game off, but when trying to clear a stage, these can be invaluable as all enemies and objectives are saved when you quick save. Seriously, these are a lifesaver, especially for those really tough areas. The sound design is pretty top notch. There are the typical epic war themes that play at most times, and the tracks were designed by, as Steam puts it, the acclaimed music composer Jesper Kyd, in combination with the Hungarian Radio Choir. Looking at the games he contributed to, I can only say I recognize the Assassin's Creed games, Borderlands, Hitman, and obviously Freedom Fighters. I don't recall any of the tracks from these games, as to me they felt more atmospheric than, say, pumping musical jams, so I guess there's that. I really don't know where I was going with this, so I'll just say that the soundtrack exists. The graphics, on the other hand, were pretty decent for the era. What I was impressed with the most is the weather effects. Many stages have either rain or snow coming down at you, which really makes running in a destroyed Manhattan feel a bit more realistic. Saying that, there are some graphical hiccups that can be seen, mostly with the various textures that may float in and out. I am pretty sure it's because this is a 2003 game running on Windows 10 with no patches or anything, so I can't entirely fault the game for this. I don't recall any of this happening on the PS2 edition, and as much as I intended to play that one instead, my game locks up shortly after starting, as the disc isn't in the greatest condition, so the PC version I'm stuck with. So after everything I've said, is Freedom Fighters worth playing today? Well, if the challenging yet fun statement I made at the start of this review didn't indicate that it was, well, yes, it is. It has that unique rebel fighter mechanic that makes you think outside the box when approaching combat situations, yet still has a solid gunplay model that makes firefights fun. The story may not be the most engrossing, but it does a fair job at explaining what's going on, and sets up for a sequel, which apparently was announced but then cancelled to the dismay of pretty much everyone that's played this. Seriously, IO, give us the sequel that we demand. But until that happens, we can enjoy Freedom Fighters. Yes, Chris's ineptitude with firearms can be frustrating, but if you can overcome that, then you'll find 68 hours that you spend with the game a pleasant experience. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.